Georgia voters also know that we've made it easy to cast a ballot because I've been traveling the state and I've been watching early voting. In fact, I early voted on day 2. We know it's easy to cast a ballot and we know it's hard to cheat. It's really as simple as that. Over the last few years, we have worked tirelessly to prepare for this election by adding early voting days and investing in infrastructure, creating more security and more voter convenience. But then you think, only to be rewarded with the lies about Jim Crow 2.0, and we lost an all-star game. Frustratingly, recently a candidate repeated that lie, that we will lock up people and give water to voters waiting in line to vote. That's a lie, because we don't have any lines in Georgia. It's just cheap politics. Now, there are some reports of voters waiting in line for more than 30 minutes at a few popular voting locations. But during early voting, you can vote in any of your county precincts that are open on early voting. On day 2, Trish and I, we went to a North Fulton library. We looked at the line. It looked like a 30-minute line. But actually, I think it's probably a 20-minute line because we've done such a great job with our electronic poll pads of moving people through the lines. So what we did is we went to another library, voted in 7 minutes. And that's what you can do, in and out the door, and it's quick. So what we're seeing right now is statewide, you have to wait for as much as 3 minutes to check in to vote. For me, it was under a minute. No special treatment. That's what they're running through at that precinct. But also that's what they're running through in Paulding, where I was at yesterday, Coweta, and the day before in Jones County. People are moving through those lines very quickly. And I'm just so proud of the work that our counties have done, and so proud of my election team and what they've done. And nobody's getting put in jail. Nobody's getting arrested because there are no more lines. I made sure that one of the things that we put into state law was that lines on election day have to be shorter than 1 hour. And we've also then just didn't put it into state law. We actually worked with the counties, giving them some metrics. This is how many voters you have. This is how many voting machines you have. And then you're going to get, graded on that: green light, yellow light, and also red light. We worked with the counties, and the counties have done a great job. In 2022, the average wait time was 2 minutes. 2022, the fall of 2020, when we started monitoring this, it was 3 minutes. And we'll see what it is next week, but we know that we're going to work on making sure that lines stay under 1 hour. Yes, there'll be maybe a few precincts that'll be 50 minutes at those little moments, but it's really important because we think the voters should always come first, and the voter experience is really important. Everything that we have done for elections have been to improve ballot security, transparency, accuracy, and trust, and improve the voter experience for short lines and quick results. Simply put, I have put voters first, and that really matters to me. Their vote matters, but so do they. But also when we do that, we build confidence. And by building confidence, we build trust. And trust is today's modern-day gold standard. We're battle-tested, we're ready, and we're delivering a convenient voter experience, despite everything that some people might say. I want to bring up here, Blake Evans. He's going to share some metrics here for you. We're going to put on real TV, which is our data, not what you're going to see on general TV. Go ahead, Blake, and share that.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So first and foremost, I want to echo what the Secretary said, that we are extremely grateful for the hard work of county election officials in all 159 of our counties. They are doing just a tremendous job of processing voters in very high turnout that we're seeing this election. And I'll show some numbers here in just a second. I was in Paulding a couple of days ago, and they had several voters that were there in line, and I timed from the last voter from the time it took them in the back of the line to get to the front, and it was under 15 minutes, and that was during the lunch hour rush. So they're just doing a tremendous job. Their poll workers are doing a tremendous job. And as we get closer to Election Day, I expect to see more of the same, and we're just very, very grateful for their hard work. And so now to get to some of the numbers that we have I would call it state-of-the-art data hub that's on our website. You can go there and it updates hourly throughout early voting, and you get to see some turnout numbers. Just to show some other graphics. Here's a chart that we have internally that shows that just under 3.1 million people have voted advance in person in all 159 of our counties. And so each color on the chart represents a different county. We monitor that throughout early voting. We have a little line graph here that shows just we've seen the steady turnout throughout advance in-person voting. The first week was extremely busy. We saw a little bit of a decrease in the second week, although still high numbers. And I expect as we get into today, tomorrow, and Friday that we're going to see those numbers go up again. Typically what we see in advance in-person voting is that the last day of voting ends up being very, very high as people try to get their vote cast before Election Day. And so right now we are trending right up towards 3.1 million people having voted advance in person. This right here is a screenshot of our data hub, which you can go online and take a look at. This particular screenshot shows absentee voting statistics, and we have a lot of great data here that people can really drill down into. They can drill down into the county level, and they can look at how many ballots have been requested by voters in that county, how many have been accepted, how many have maybe been canceled, because we do have voters who will cancel their ballot, for example, to show up and vote in person. We have that data here. And so through our data hub, you can drill down and look into this. When I took this screenshot, we were sitting at just under 200,000 absentee ballots accepted, and that was out of 341,520 that have been issued as of about an hour ago. And so again, we update these numbers hourly, and so we'll be doing that up until Election Day. Now on Election Day, we will not be updating the data hub hourly with Election Day turnout, and that's simply because we have about over 2,200 Election Day polling locations across the state, and we get turnout numbers from most of them, but not all of them. And so, but during advance voting, we do update this hourly. And then we also have this on our data hub. This is showing total turnout of all 159 counties in our state. At the time that I took this, we were sitting at 45.4% turnout. That's just under 3.3 million people having voted in our state. And you can also drill down, you can see which counties in the state are leading the turnout, and Towns County was sitting at about 64% turnout, which is very, very high, going into, with still 2 days left, 2.5 days left of early voting. And you can see which counties are leading in turnout all the way down to from 1 to 159. And so I wanted to share those with you. Again, I encourage you to go to our data hub. Just a few other things that I want to say real fast is we are very thankful, I mentioned, for our county election officials. We're also very grateful for our Georgia Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency. They have been tremendously helpful to us throughout the process of early voting and preparing for Election Day, especially in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. They have helped us with even deploying Starlinks and making sure that we have those if a county loses communications. We had one county that lost communications at their main office, so we deployed a Starlink out to them, and they were able to continue processing their absentee ballot applications and voter registration applications, so we're very grateful there. Also very grateful for Georgia Power, as they have been helpful in the locations where we needed power restored. They made sure the power got restored. And also as we gear up for Election Day, they have been helpful in making sure that there's not construction going on near polling there's not work that they're doing going on near polling locations. And so we're grateful for that. And so with that, I do want to turn it right now over to our Chief Operations Officer, Gabriel Sterling. Absolutely. Blake Evans, Elections Director.
You're always being helpful. Blake covered most of this. Obviously, record turnout is fantastic, and we are very thankful to the counties and their workers. We have to acknowledge are working in an environment that is very different than it was 8, 10, 6 years ago. It's an environment that is highly stressful, but they know what they're doing, and they know their jobs, and these are all American heroes. And the Secretary and Blake and I get to get up here with all the TV cameras and everything, but we always have to keep in mind that it's the county, local elections officials who are running this election. And on the data hub, We made a decision to invest in that years ago to help to kill misinformation and disinformation. The idea of ballot dumps, the idea that we don't know how many votes are coming in. Because on Friday, you can look on the data hub when we close down, and there'll be some reconciliations where they make sure they get all the cards in and all the check-ins lined up. We will know the amount of people who voted early. And also, by Monday afternoon and even Tuesday day, we will know how many absentee ballots have been received. One big thing on absentee ballots, we still have 140,000 that are out that could come in. As we have been saying now for a month, if you haven't gotten your absentee ballot yet, make a plan to go vote in person, either early in your county or on election day. If you have gotten your absentee ballot, us and the United States Postal Service now say, do not put it in the mail. Take it to your local county elections office or the drop box at the early voting location in your county. That way you're protecting your vote. If you have mailed it, sign up for Ballot Scout on your My Voter page at mvp.sos.ga.gov and make sure it's been accepted. If it hasn't been accepted by Thursday night, make a plan to go vote at your local early voting location or go to your regular election day location. All that information is on the MVP page, so it's very convenient for you to go to. As the Secretary and Blake said, we're here for the voters of Georgia, and they are showing up and showing out, I guess is what they like to say. We are at 2/3 of the entire turnout we saw in the 2020 election already. There's a possibility it could be a ghost town on election day. We could see we had less than 1 million show up in 2020 during COVID with all the uses of these free election day voting. And we, like the Secretary said, we can't know voter behavior, human behavior. We may break 4 million, we may not. This is what we do know. When you go to vote, it'll be an easy process. And there are those who are already going out of their way to try to undermine people's thoughts on how these processes work. Another thing on Data Hub. There are people in the Twitterverse basically saying the active voter numbers are going up after the registration date is closed. In the very first press conference we had for this general election, we said the active voter number will continue to rise. That is for 2 reasons. One, registrations that were received before the cutoff date that hadn't been processed yet. And 2, every time an inactive voter votes, they become what? Active. So we're being transparent. And I love some of the things on Twitter. They'll take pictures like, it's going up. It's like, if we were going to do something secretive, why would we tell you? We're giving you all the information in the world. And we're explaining it to you. And for those who choose not to understand, and it is a choice. People are making a choice not to believe those of us who are in the government offices, and I get it sometimes. You should be skeptical. You can ask questions, and those can be legitimate. But some of these things are so cuckoo-ca-choo crazy town that it's ridiculous to even try to respond to sometimes. So with that, I'll take any questions y'all might have on the specific of turnout and everything else. We'll start. Mark, why not?
Can you walk us through what to expect on election day? I know it's unpredictable, but do you think that will get higher turnout in 2020 overall? And also as far as processing ballots, I know we have pre-processing allowances in state law. Do you expect all counties to pre-process early votes and absentee votes so that they can be time to report on election day?
Well, first of all, the law now states that all the early votes, they're not only processing those because they're processed on site. They are voted and they're put onto those cards and they're tabulated back at the EMS at the headquarters. Those will all be uploaded to the election night reporting system and made public 1 hour after the polls close. I know some people have been saying 8 o'clock. The law specifically says an hour after the polls close, because let's say that, Gus, the night watchman, overslept and forgot to bring the key in, and they open up at 7:20, and a court orders them to stay open until the following 7:20 that night. For that county, it will be 8:20 for the upload. So there is that possibility. So the vast majority will be up by 8. Also, any processed absentees, as you pointed out, will also be loaded at that point. Depending on the county, depending on the volume, there'll be many people who it could be coming in on that Tuesday if it came in the mail, and that's not going to be processed till that night or probably the next morning, potentially, depending on what happens that day. The other thing we will know is by midnight, we will know the volume, the outer edges of who's voted. And to go back to something happened in 2020, Uwakava was this bucket of votes that everybody thought might change the outcome. We've gotten 20, I'm going to spitball these numbers. If you want specifics, you can call Blake in our office and we'll get the specifics. It's around 23,000 or so UACAVA requests, and I think about almost 10,000 been returned. Is that about right? About 10,000 been returned. What happens is not all of them make it back. And I remember very specifically standing here and they said, well, how many are in the mail? I'm like, I can't know that. I can tell you this. At the time, it was more than 0, but less than 8,000. We'll have a similar situation this time, depending on how many come in over the next few days. Because those, by law, if they are postmarked by Tuesday, have to be accepted by Friday. And I'm going to go over this again. The other 2 buckets of votes that can be there from Tuesday to Friday are the provisional votes that can be verified, and then also the absentee ballots that can be cured. And a cure is you forgot to sign it. You forgot to put your driver's license number on it. You transposed your driver's license number. The county has to notify you and let you know, hey, you need to come in here and fix this so they can protect your franchise. So again, it's another reason to go through and check on the My Voter page to make sure that your mailed ballot, don't think it's done. It's the responsibility of the voter to go make sure that that has been accepted by the county so it can be counted in the final tabulation. Who else? Yes, sir. Prayer? No, we've already talked to the governor's office about lining up special assistant attorney generals because, frankly, A, we don't know who's going to win, and who wins will decide who sues us, essentially, at the end of the day. So if Vice President Harris wins, we expect Trump officials to sue us. If President Trump wins, we expect Harris officials to sue us. And again, if you're getting sued by both sides, generally speaking, we feel like we're doing a pretty good job. But that we're lining up, we're already kind of knowing what the basis, and we're seeing some of the things they're kind of claiming from previous lawsuits in front of the Lay Foundation. I don't want to get too deep into it. Our general counsel standing over there itching right now, I can tell. So, Archie.
Here in 2020, what's being done differently to upgrade security? I know you talked about it just in terms of old precincts, and how can you comment if the FBI or the media are going to tap into the help? I know they can't comment, but they will do a lot of help.
They don't like it when we comment on that, Archie. But I will say this. Obviously, the threat environment is different now, but I think our counties are more prepared, our local law enforcement are more prepared, state law enforcement is more prepared, our office is more prepared. We have deployed tools into the counties that have opted in with the poll worker first response text tool that will allow a poll manager to text a number that will notify the county elections director, our state office for the war room, and local law enforcement if they have opted in, as to what a situation on the ground might be. That is an investment we've done. Fortunately, so far, no one's had to do that. We do get reports of people planning potential physical issues on machines themselves, and we are in regular communication with the GBI and the FBI about potential threats, and I don't want to get too deep into it at that point, because when you say, hey, we're ready for anything, people say, hold my beer. You know, it's just going to see what happens next. So we are more prepared. The environment we obviously know is different, and people's guards up. And the problem is sometimes your guard's really up. Everything looks like a threat, even normal things. Like you find a dead squirrel on your porch. Did somebody put that there as an intimidation factor, or did the cat kill the squirrel? We don't know. But everybody's up. And another thing that our office did is we had 7 different convenings with local law enforcement and local elections officials, so they could kind of game plan and go through what they would do in these situations and not have the first time they meet be in a high-stress, difficult situation. I cannot tell you how many tabletops we have done with our federal partners and state partners to game plan pre-election issues, election day issues, and even post-election issues. You can't prepare for everything. It's impossible. And there will always be new ways to undermine people's faith in the outcomes of these elections. But we know we've done all we can with the resources the legislature has given us. SB 202, SB 189 have been helpful in many ways to help run better, stronger, safer elections in the state. Who else? Yes, sir. A mathematical assumption is yes, because as an overall percentage, but we can go back and look at that specifically, but I'm going to make an assumption that it likely is. Yes, ma'am. That is a local county decision. And in some locations, we have to understand historically, if a cop car is sitting in front of the polling location, some people might feel intimidated. So we're not going to direct anybody to do those kind of things, even though under the Constitution, the sheriff's office is supposed to be supplying security for all elections locations. But we leave that up to the local elections officials to decide the best way to do that, to deploy maybe a plainclothes person, which we know they're doing in some places to avoid those kind of issues. Yes, sir. I'm sure we have, but I'll have to look into it. I mean, because we always have claims and stuff, and some we triage out as being not supported by any actual evidence. But I think we have opened up. We've opened up a handful, yeah, but not a ton. But we can get you those basic numbers. Nobody in the middle. Come on, none of you camera guys. Anybody? All right. Yes, sir. Well, I mean, you obviously are going right into this nice high hard one over the plate that I can easily knock out of the park. We had a DDoS attack only a couple of weeks ago, September 14th. And our IT team, which we've really kind of improved and upgraded over the last couple of years, and our partners with Cloudflare, at 5:16 on that day, we saw a little slowdown on the absentee ballot portal. And by 5:20, our partner had labeled it a DDoS attack, had recognized IP addresses used by other attacks, and we were able to mitigate it. And so within 20 minutes, the attack essentially ended. We monitored it for the rest of the evening until 10 p.m. that night, then declared it over and went back to regular configuration. We didn't really want to talk about that too much, but our friends at CNN got it, so we had to get it out there, because we would have talked about it after the election, because again, it goes back to my hold my beer scenario, where if we say, hey, everything's great and everything's safe, that somebody's going to try to hit you. So we weren't trying to brag about it, but we feel really proud of the way our team responded to that. And we, again, don't know. The good thing I want to say about this, and let's remind everybody, voting machines, remember this, voting machines are never connected to the internet. Let me be clear about that. Voting machines, the scanners, the election management systems, the ballot marking devices are never on the internet, so they can't be hacked remotely. Understand that. That is a long-time lie and misinformation, disinformation. And I feel like I have to do whack-a-mole up here on that every couple of years just to remind everybody. But they are never connected to the internet. All right, what else? Kate, nothing from you from AP? Yeah. We answered every one of your questions. Oh, here we go, sorry. Well, everything going to plan would be every voter gets to cast a vote, all the tallies come in. The one thing we can't control is what the margin is. We can't control that. So if the margin is 50,000, everybody will easily be able to make the call, because the official results don't come out until we certify the election. But the networks will be able to make the call. I saw this one terrifying tweet from a political group that had all the states with like the margins they thought they were going to have based on who's turned out, what the polls say, and they had Georgia at plus or minus 1,000. I didn't sleep that night very well, because it could be that. This is a tight election, and I want to make sure that all the Harris supporters and all the Trump supporters who can't possibly imagine the person that they hate winning, it might happen. It might happen. This is a tight election. Anybody telling you it's going to be a blowout one or the other has some secret magic ball the rest of us don't know about. It's going to be a close election here. It's going to be a close election in Pennsylvania. It's going to be a close election in Michigan and in Wisconsin and in Nevada and Arizona and North Carolina. And guess what? That's what where are all the presidential candidates since last week? Here, North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada. Because we know what's going to happen in every other state. The best thing for us, and we say this as election administrators, is we want a high turnout, we want a wide margin. I think we're getting the high turnout taken care of. We could potentially have a record turnout of active voters in this state. 2020 was the highest since Jack Kennedy was elected in 1960. And as we know, the voting base there was a lot smaller because that was pre-Voting Rights Act. So the voting population now is gigantic compared to that, and we're going to have a record turnout more than likely. But we can't know what the margin is going to be. And that's going to be determinative of when we know. People like, in 2020, guess what? We had a great election day. Everything went fantastic. There were no lines. We loved it. It was great. Same thing's going to happen this time. We're going to have a great election day. It's all be determinative on the actual outcomes. Anybody else? All right. Thank you all. And we'll see you probably, if not before Tuesday, we'll see you Tuesday.
poll pack question.
Yeah.
I know we used during early